3. So in terms of the first stop, they put it on the bags of everybody's on the first stop.
Got like McDonald's
They let the people
and a
off
couple
the
of
bus.
fast food joints.
That sounds
So
exciting.
a 10-minute trip before you're just taking a freaking taxi, you know, turned into an hour.
She must have had some reason to go there.
To go, you know, 5 miles.
Really?
So that was a drag. And then, so then, you know, we didn't know
We
our
can't
flight
take
was
care
at
of our
1:30.
sister's family.
So we get there at 10 o'clock. We're at the airport. Getting by a good restaurant.
Yeah, she died last
They had a
Sunday.
women's joint in the terminal
She
where
moved to Canada
Americans
because of
there.
Ronald Reagan. Literally.
So we ate,
He was governor of
but it's,
California.
you're getting off,
Her husband
getting
was
off
at
the
one
boat
of
at
the state
7:30 in the morning,
universities.
which is 5:30 in Arizona. We don't get back to Tucson till 8:30
And
that
they
night.
lived, they never leave.
And my wife said, I'll never fly
From there to where to where?
Tucson through Dallas.
It is now.
I haven't gotten my flights yet,
It's really easy.
So,
Then when they moved my mother up,
but that, yeah, that's a
But, you know, so the activities they have on the ship during the day, a lot of it's geared towards the casino,
so she had free nursing home care.
and you have seminars, like the center of the spa, or the this, or one of the stores. They're trying to sell you something, you know, so we found that out real quick. It was the first seminar, was fitness center was good. The thing that my wife and I go down to.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday, February 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Pima County Election Integrity Commission. Commissioner Smith, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Atkins.
Present.
Commissioner DeLarge.
Here.
Commissioner Mace. Commissioner Caswell. Commissioner Tellman.
Here.
Commissioner Kirshen. Commissioner Bresney.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Director Hargrove.
Present.
And the chair is here, and we do have a quorum. Call to the public. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission?
Morning, my name is Tim Locks. I'm going to repeat pretty much what I said at the supervisor meeting last Tuesday. Last July, we spent in this room about an hour and a half listening to the county reporter talk about the voter list maintenance and what they're doing to clean up the voter rolls, which is absolutely very little, if any at all. Currently, there are north of 109,000 active voters on the voter rolls that have absolutely no vote history. They're not supposed to be on the voter rolls. They, at the very least, they should be inactive, but they're not. They're active voters. Of those 109,000, 65,000 of them are on the active early vote list. This is a tremendous waste of tax dollars that many ballots are being blasted out into Pima County with little chance that they will be used. She also talked about, one of the first things they talked about was how they deal with people of age. For example, they talked about we start with people who are 100 years older. Well, get this. We've got a 122-year-old individual. She would be 122 this year, but she moved to Washington State and died in 2019. There are 426 voters aged 101 or more. The next issue is people being allowed to vote inside the 29-day cutoff. The 2020 general election, which was a presidential election, 3,152 people were allowed to vote after registering within the 29-day period. The 22 election, 324 people were allowed to vote after the 29-day cutoff. That could have changed the outcome of the Secretary of State chair. In 23, the Tucson election, 542 people were allowed to vote, which could have changed the outcome of the mayoral and city council salaries. The maintenance of the voter rolls is absolutely shameful. What I've described is just a tip of the iceberg compared to all of my findings, which you can find, by the way, on pimaintegrity.com. That's only part one of my findings. Maintenance of the voter rolls, again, is shameful. The list the county recorder provided when the $950,000 appropriation came from the national. Here it is right here. Not even on county recorder letterhead. Looked like it was put together on a spreadsheet. It was submitted to the Board of Supervisors. I don't even think they looked at it. But I have a question as to what printing costs for promotional items, R&M machinery and equipment service have anything to do with cleaning up the voter rolls. I assure you there likely is going to be a legislative audit to recoup this money. Okay, I have one more item, Chair Bickle, if I could. 15 counties in Arizona, Pima County is the only county where the county recorder will not allow political observers at early vote locations. That is not right. It makes me think something's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission? Hearing none, moving along. Approval of the January 19th, 2024 meeting summaries. They have been distributed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections that anybody would like to have made? Hearing none, they stand approved as presented. Agenda items. Discussion on poll worker communication platform is outlined in Governor Hobbs' elections task force. The chair asked to have the first two of their recommendations placed on the agenda each month, or first two of them placed on the agenda each month until we get through all of, I believe there's 16 recommendations that the commission made. The first one, having read the summary and their detailed explanation as we went through it, I understand, I think, the recommendation. I question the feasibility of being able to put something like that together given the worker database that we have. Basically, it's a recommendation to eliminate paper spreadsheets for documentation and tracking of data by poll workers and coming up with some kind of a app to put on a phone where they can be in touch real time throughout the state. Given the concern, for lack of a better term, about the integrity of electronic equipment in the voting process, introducing another piece that's generally available to the public, I question the wisdom of it. Not that I wouldn't support the idea, and I kind of like these little toys. They're fun to play with, but I don't know how easy it would be to provide a sense of security to the general public that the information that's being portrayed on a poll worker's cell phone is adequately protected from infiltration or hacking, and how accurate the information might be once it's consolidated. I'm assuming at either the recorder's office or the director of elections office. So while I support the conceptual item as it was presented, I really have a lot of concerns as far as the actual implementation is concerned and how well it's going to function within the elections process. And since the recorder actually sat on that commission, and I understand why, but it would have been nice to have her here to address that piece of the puzzle from her perspective. But Director Hargrove, if you could opine on that process.
Chair Bickle, sure, I can opine on that. Well, I will begin by saying, number one, since the counties are decentralized, the first task is going to be for the state, whomever is going to take this on, to make sure that all the information is in one place. I can assure you that is a difficult task because we had the ability to do that in Virginia, not the cell phone, we hadn't gotten there thing, but the state had an application where we could manage poll workers if we chose to do so. Unfortunately, it was more difficult to try to get the information in there and manage it for all of the different localities, because Virginia has 122 different localities, and everyone's different, the way they manage the process and the way they manage the payment and the way they communicate with their poll workers. Rural areas are not going to be able to do the cell phone as much as the city of Tucson, someone in the city of Tucson. It will be an uphill battle. It could be done. I'm not so much worried about the security of it as the just the logistics of actually putting it all together.
Yeah. Chair Bickle.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Presley.
And I agree both Chair Bickle and Ms. Hargrove with your understanding. You know, I had a couple specifics on this, you know. Paragraph 2 on page 27 says, utilizing mobile devices. Who buys these devices? Is the communication on these devices secure? You know, if you're going to put this kind of stuff out in an open network, automation is great, but being an old IT guy working for the Army, it's not the be-all, end-all. You know, we used to say a fool with a tool is still a fool. And, you know, we can automate till the cows come home, but it doesn't necessarily make the process and the system better. So who was going to buy mobile devices if this was a recommendation? Are they going to use an individual's mobile device and you download an application off of your app store, or what? So there's a lot to be left there. On page 28 under paragraph 3 says, with a pilot program, one or more smaller counties could possibly utilize an existing solution used by a larger county such as Pima, Maricopa, or Pima. My question was, do either currently have one? And then on the next page, they do mention the Tenex software solution that has a couple additional modules. And I'm going to, I don't know, are we using those two modules? They're called the two modules. There's an election response module which tracks issues to resolution and provides text alert capability. An election force module which allows for training, recruitment, scheduling, and poll worker payment. Do we utilize those in our Tenex software solution for you poll folks right now?
Chair Bickle, Commissioner Beresny, we do. We have the ability to use election response. We have not used it yet. We do use election force. Deputy Director George would have more information on that. It does not have the capabilities that they're speaking of right now.
Okay.
It could probably get there, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
And I think Deputy Director George can also speak to how many people are actually taking advantage of the electronic portion of the system. So if you want to speak to that.
Sure. So we do actually, through election force, we are able to notify and communicate with the poll workers. So we utilize that. We can send emails out, we can send text messages out to notify them. There's also a worker portal set up, which is where the poll workers can get on. They log in securely, they can see their class schedule, they can sign up for training classes, and they can see their workday schedule where they're assigned. It's also where they can go to access our online training.
Oh, so you've got this there, but then they can sit at home, access it through a password and user ID,
Yes.
and pull down their training that's contained within this module? Is that how that works?
Yes, so it's a worker portal. They're not accessing election force directly. That is the system that we have where all the poll workers are in there.
Right,
But
that's where they do their time card and stuff like that, right?
a little bit. It's where they see their schedule.
Yeah.
It's where they can see, they can sign up for classes, and we can use that portal and use election force to notify poll workers.
But that's not, okay, so that's not actually on the e-poll book then, is that correct?
No, it is.
It's a separate module?
It is. Election force is basically the poll worker database. So anything to do with poll workers, with training classes, with election day locations and assigning all the poll workers, that's all covered within every separate module. It's not with the poll books exactly. It's different.
But we bought that then, when we bought the Tenix solution for e-poll books?
That
Or
is
did we have
correct.
that before?
They purchased several modules. Yes, we already have that, yes.
Okay. And then, you know, they have another option is Google Workspace, which features many features, you know, and you're sitting there putting out, I'm not a big cloud guy, you know, I got my apprehensions about that, but just putting out all this information there out into the cloud, you know, it's just one of those good idea fairy things that are a bad idea.
Chair Pickle? Commissioner Beresny, I guess it really depends on what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
If they're just trying to have a list of people out there, okay, that's public information anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
We provide that to the Board of Supervisors for them to approve our poll worker list. That's public information. So it's out there already. If that's all they're trying to do, then that's one thing. If they're trying to do something else with it, I'm not aware of whatever else they want to do. So we would have to have more information.
Yeah, I think really the big concern is the conduct of the election themselves. When the polls are open, how then are you communicating this kind of stuff? Through the e-poll books, then through telephone calls, right? Basically, is that the workflow?
For poll workers?
Yeah.
So we're not having that communication at all technically on election day with poll workers. The poll workers, if they have issues at the vote centers, will call us. Yes, they will call us. You know, if we do have the election response available, they may be able to go in and enter their problem there. We can see it and respond to it, right? That comes to us into election force. As far as anything else with poll workers on election day, that list is just a static list at that point.
Yeah.
They get approved before the election.
Thanks, Chair Bickle.
Anybody? Anything
Chairman
else?
Bickle and Director Hargrove, from what I understand, though, also the poll workers are directed not to be utilizing their cell phones at all in vote centers. So there's a difference when we're talking about now putting things on there to communicate with poll workers in real time. Right now, we as inspectors and others utilize our own phone, or we were assigned a phone through the elections department to utilize, and technically, or for the public's trust, only those inspectors are supposed to be communicating those issues through their personal cell phones on election day in those vote centers, and the rest of the workers should not be having their cell phones out and in use on election day. That is one of the things that is in the poll worker training. So that will be a change from what we are instructing poll workers now about use of cell phones if we're going to go to a real-time system utilizing cellular data.
Chair Bickle, Commissioner Caswell, I think it's a lot of conversation that needs to be had. I think it's a lot of misunderstanding of what the expectation is on election day, because you're absolutely right. There is no way that a poll worker can communicate all day long on election day and serve the voters. That's just not logical. That will not work. So I think there's more conversation that needs to be had, more information to make sure we understand what the governor is putting forth, because right now that's just not clear.
Thank you.
Okay. To piggyback on what Commissioner Caswell said, as far as poll worker use of cell phones, that applies to observers as well. And opening up a Pandora's box where some people get to use a cell phone, some people don't get to use a cell phone. Now you've got a new position in the voting center called the cell phone monitor to make sure that people that are using it are authorized to use it and people that aren't authorized to use it don't use it. But it could become problematic trying to keep track of who's who and what's what and how things are done. And all of a sudden, in the vote center, everybody's trying to use their cell phone to take pictures of stuff that they're not supposed to be taking pictures of. So, yeah, I think this is one of those where it's a good idea and it sounds wonderful on paper, but I think when you sit down and take a look at it in practice, it's going to require a whole lot more refinement. I don't know that I'll see this implemented in my lifetime, but I think we're getting there. But yeah, good discussion. Thank you. I appreciate all the comments from everybody. Next item on the agenda is discussion on incentives to improve poll worker recruitment as outlined in Governor Hobbs' election task force. Again, I think this is an ongoing problem, not just in Pima County, but throughout the state, is finding enough people willing to serve as poll workers first, enough people of each political party to serve as poll workers second, and the increasing percentage of voters who are affiliated with no political party who can be a poll worker or be somebody that's working or observing the elections process. But again, it's one of them and one of somebody else. So it's coming up with the one ofs that I think makes things a little bit difficult. I have long thought it would be a good idea to treat poll workers on election day and probably a couple days before and a couple days after like people that are on jury duty. It's not voluntary. You have to be there, but it's not punitive as far as your employer is concerned. You know, and I don't think it's unique to Pima County. I feel that the average age of poll workers anywhere is significantly north of midlife, wherever you choose to put that now. But I would say early to mid 50s is a reasonable median age for poll workers. So and I think as we move forward, having qualified poll workers, you don't want to train somebody that's 85 to be a poll worker and find out that they're not there when the election finally comes along because they've met their just reward. Not to be pessimistic about it, but I think trying to find a mechanism that encourages employers and the voters that are younger, and I don't mean 18 to 20-year-olds, I mean 40 to 45-year-olds, to function as poll workers is a good idea. Now, how we come up with that without creating a detrimental environment, you know, and you see that this isn't a problem that's unique to poll work. It's a problem where you've got voluntary service in general, and I serve on several boards other than this one, looking for younger people to participate in the process, and the fact that they've got a family and a job that are absolutely going to take priority over a non-compensated voluntary position on some kind of, and I realize we pay poll workers, but it's a finite amount of money over a finite period of time, and it's not something you can support a family on. So I certainly appreciate the concerns they have as far as their obligation of time is concerned. But, you know, generally speaking, I support anything we can do to lower the median age of poll workers. How we do that, I don't know, is something we're going to come up with a solution for in the course of the discussion today, but I think it's an idea that's certainly worth pursuing, much more so than the previous item.
Yeah, Chair Bickle. It's funny that, or ironic, or whatever you want to use, that you mentioned jury duty, because that was something I was thinking about yesterday. When you register to vote, you're automatically put in the juror pool, correct? That's my understanding?
No.
Not necessarily?
This is a for lack of a better term, it's a motor voter state. When you get a driver's license, you're put in a jury pool.
Okay, so we get a driver's license.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, that's to me, that's a more feasible way of trying to get poll workers than try to get businesses to compensate their employees or you know, all of these things that are going to cost additional money, like free childcare services, recruit rideshare companies. You know, have businesses, you know, not charge leave time to their employees. Businesses work on a very low margin to begin with, especially small businesses here, all over the country. And I think just with something like this, to try to get the business community to go along with this is probably a stretch. So the jury duty thing, I think, is a great idea, though. The jury duty poll worker connection.
Commissioner Tillman.
I'd like to know what we do now to recruit poll workers, and do we make it easy for them to apply? A friend of mine tried a couple of times to apply for both the board worker and poll worker and had difficulty getting through, and seemed obstacles were in her way. So what do we do now to make sure that it's easy for people to know what's happening?
Chair Bickle, I'm going to turn this over to Vanessa and Deputy George here. So for board workers, that's separate from poll worker.
Yeah, but this person tried both positions, yeah.
You guys.
Okay, did you explain what is it a specific situation?
She couldn't get responses. She applied and didn't get any response at all.
So she should
And then she
have-
tried phoning. I told her to call you and so forth.
If she applied directly through our website, that's where everybody applies
That's
to
what
be a
she
poll worker, she would have received an email immediately afterwards. That email acknowledges we received the application and that as we go through them, if she is somebody that was selected to be a poll worker, she would be contacted. So right now, we still have several hundred applications that we're going through. The vast majority of spots have been filled. But if she was to be selected, then she would get an email acknowledging that with some follow-ups about attending training classes and all of that. So that is a process. Once you apply, you get an initial email that says you received it, and then if they're selected, it will hear from us again.
And then do you ever get an email that says, we're filled up, you're not going to be selected?
Eventually. But, so the thing is, spots, they open up, we have people drop out, daily this process changes with poll workers. So I don't like to send out that there are no spots available when there might be 1 2 days. Now it gets more confusing. So I'll reject it, and now I'm accepting.
Or could there be something like a waiting list? You're on a waiting list, we'll call you if something opens up.
So once we do have all of the regular spots filled up, we do try to fill a couple standby positions at each location. So actually, that's something we're doing right now. We're calling those poll workers who the spots are full and saying, hey, are you willing to be on standby? You sign up for a training class. You just need to be available if that happens. Typically, for that, we'll reach out to you directly.
Her other problem was not really knowing where to start. She tried the recorder's office, city election. She tried the recorder's office for the city election. It was not relevant. So do we really tell people where it is that they apply and what we need?
It's on the website. There's a tab for poll workers. As soon as you go to that tab, one of the first things you see is if you want to be a poll worker, click here to apply, and you would fill out that application. If somebody does not want to get on the computer, they can call our office. We can give them a print application, and we can do it that way as well.
I was just thinking that they don't know to go to the website. Are we doing anything public to get out the information that we are looking for workers?
No, not directly at this time. The other thing is, we don't actually, as a general rule, especially within Tucson in the general area, have a desperate need for poll workers in general. Like I said, we have several hundred applications in the system, and we pretty much are full for the most part. We have a few areas out in cells that are often difficult to fill, and that's just kind of an ongoing thing. But we don't struggle as a rule to recruit poll workers.
And board workers?
By board workers, you're referring to the
Processing.
the process central receiving, the night board workers.
Early boards.
Early board.
Yeah, early ones.
Okay, that would be more necessary.
So, we have filled all of our positions for early board for the PPE. We will hire more ahead of this hiring in general. That process is the same as any Pima County job listing. It will be posted on our website, not our elections website, but the Pima County job listing. Anybody can go through there and apply. You have to go through the application process. We have to do our HR stuff, pull those records, and then they go through an interview just like anyone else who's applying for any other position. And then, as we see fit, we'll hire those people, make sure we have enough boards ahead of the time.
And Chair Bickle, so Commissioner Tillman, I think there's also confusion because the recorder also has, probably still has an open position for their board workers, right, for signature verification. And then we have ours open. So they get confused as to where they're applying. As far as the City of Tucson election, they would have been applying with the City of Tucson.
Yeah, there's just this confusion that people don't know where to start. And I'm
Right.
wondering what we could do to help that.
Right, so we can definitely make it, the information clearer on our website, but after the PPE election, we will be doing some advertising for poll workers, especially in the sales area. So I do have some thoughts of maybe getting together with the recorder. We go out to the nation and have an event where we can then kind of recruit poll workers, or at least let them know that we need poll workers in those areas because it's really hard to get them out there.
Chairman Bickle?
Commissioner Caswell.
It's unfortunate. I think that we were missing a huge opportunity to engage with civic duty and civics within a younger group of people. I am an inspector for Vote Center 5, and I hope and encourage all of our commissioners to get involved in this process. It's very good to learn. It's very good for the oversight and our public trust here for me to understand it from a firsthand point of view. But in my vote center, I have even election workers that are students. And these students and younger people can manage the technology so much more quickly, and they can understand things, and they're actually very pleasant for our voter community. And so it provides a little bit of confidence because we all understand that the younger generation certainly understands the technology than some of us in the older generations now, as fast as it changes. And so I do believe that our governor and others are missing a huge opportunity to have a civics engagement with students to get them involved before they even become the voters. In Vail School District alone, we have a program where children are going through a internship program to graduate. It's a requirement for graduation in Vail that they attend this internship program or a work study type program. And this could be utilized within that internship program as a civic engagement to get more people, maybe allow that credit for that in a different manner. We can do a lot more with our governor if they were to include more input from the public and more input from us in the election integrity commissions throughout the 15 counties. Because as an inspector, I have seen that personally in a vote center. And so I encourage us to reach out to the younger generation, not just those that are in the working class, that we need the employers to, have issues with employees leaving their work for the day, but that the younger class that are just entering into the voting age get that civic engagement and knowledge of the voting process. It's a huge opportunity, and I think that we need to start looking at that in our education as well.
Chair Bickle.
Director
Mr.
Hargrove.
Caswell, I absolutely agree with you. Our former trainer was really big on getting student participation, so that is something that we do. We do have those applications, and I want to say Alex was sending information out to schools to try to get some students to work the polls. So I do agree with you. I do agree that we need to catch them even before high school, so that they will be engaged and understand the process and be interested in the process, as well as getting credit for it. So, yeah, thank you for that.
And to correct, even before high school, the EPM and others require you to be at least 16 and a student to work in the vote center.
I have one more additional comment.
Commissioner Beresny.
And it's not specific to, I guess, proposal, but it's something that Vanessa said when she's talking about the poll workers and the things that the elections department has to go through, and she mentioned HR. When I was on the Board of Canvassers in Bay County, Michigan, poll workers in Michigan and those of us on the Board of Canvassers, we were contract workers. We were not temporary employees. So, as a temporary employee, you're going to get some kind of Pima County has to do the Medicare and Social Security matching stuff. Why don't we look at treating poll workers as a contractor? You still have to go through the vetting process of it, but why does the county take such a big responsibility to pay to take the time to enter them into the HR system when it's really not necessary? Okay, and do it as a contract worker.
Chair Bickle.
Director Hargrove.
Commissioner Beresny, we're talking about two different groups of people.
Okay.
So the poll workers are technically contractors.
Okay, so you just pay them a flat fee.
We pay them a flat fee.
Okay, they're the contractors.
Yes.
Okay.
The early board are the ones that work for weeks processing the ballots, and they are the ones that go through the HR process.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else? I have a couple of observations. Assistant Director George, anything that starts at the Pima County website is a difficult process. Their improvement wasn't. It is the most difficult place I've come across recently to find out anything in an easy fashion. So if that's the starting point for poll workers, they're running the wrong direction out of the blocks. That's just an observation of mine, trying to find out information about the Board of Supervisors and issues that we've had with some things in our community. We'll leave it there. But I think dependence on the other thing that I was going to mention is you said when somebody applies, they get an email indicating that they applied. They're supposed to get an email indicating that they've applied, whether they actually get it or not. And I don't know if with the county's email system, you have the option to request a response that says they've opened the email, they've read the email. I mean, sending out emails, and we all do it to countless number of things, especially the people in this room. doesn't necessarily mean that people got the email. It just means, for example, I'm trying to schedule an imaging study at the VA. We're playing phone tag, and they're supposed to return my calls within 24 to 72 hours. Well, they've never returned my calls. So I'm not going to have an imaging study done because there's a finite period of time that they will keep that physician's request open, and that's passed. So assuming that people got the email that you sent is a bad assumption. So if there's a way we can request, I know there is in commercial email, whether it's available in the tool that Pima County uses for county business or not, I don't know, but a way to request that they've received it and that they've opened it, I think it would provide an extra step of security isn't the right word, but it's acknowledgement of the fact that, yes, I've heard you, and we know that you've received the response that we've put out there. So they've got some idea what's going on. There's nothing more frustrating than sending an email somewhere and hoping to hear something, and you never do and never do and never do. And I'll be the first person to admit I don't check my spam mail that often, which is where some of this stuff may end up. So knowing that the recipient has actually received it, I think would be extremely beneficial in this regard.
Yeah, I know the county system. You can, when you're the sender, request a read, receive, a delivery and a read acknowledgement. You know, so.
Chairman Bickle? I'm sorry.
Commissioner
George.
Caswell.
I do know that as a poll worker, I have a login portal that I'm able to get my training, see where my classes are, and get all the information I've needed. Maybe an application process could be similar where you're logging in, creating a username and login. My application is always available there to update for future elections, and I can see and communicate, through that portal for that acknowledgement, and also use that to update future applications for future election work or any changes in my personal information. That may be a better way to manage that, is that an applicant would use a username and password and have access to that application and communications on that application.
So the way the system is set up, where people apply, their applying essentially is the same as that worker portal. It's basically the same website. When they apply, they have to enter an email address. That is the required part. So once they put in the email address and apply, that is when they automatically receive that email, which we can track that was sent. At that point, they basically go into our application pool. When they are granted access to the portal that you're talking about is when we hit accept on the application, and now they are in the system. Now they have access to all of that. So I don't think the system is set up right now to be able to do that application process. Until we have accepted them, they wouldn't have access to the portal.
Anything else? Moving right along. Discussion, review, and amendment to the EIC bylaws. That's something that has to be put on the agenda. I've looked through them. I don't see anything that's pressing that requires action at the present time. If somebody has something that they'd like to discuss.
I do have one right at the
Commissioner
present
Beresny.
time. I know we can't vote on it today because it has to be, the proposal amendment has to be posted within a certain amount of time frame to review it. But there's one thing, because we talked about the quarterly report. Okay, so just make that underneath the section where the chair and the vice chair are at. It'll just be an additional responsibility of the vice chair to draft the quarterly report, since I'm sitting in that position right now. Instead of identifying a person, you identify a position to do something. So I'll draft that up for the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Tillman.
I think a question arose last time as to whether our bylaws limit us to a specific number of members now that we have two new parties? Green is legitimate and no labels. Are they able to be on this commission? And if so, do we need to increase the number of commissioners?
There's no definition of the number of commissioners. It's defined as one commissioner appointed by every member of the Board of Supervisors, one commissioner appointed by the county administrator, and one commissioner appointed by each recognized political party. The Green Party has recently become recognized within Pima County, and I believe we've reached out to them asking if they would like representation on this commission. It's not mandatory. It's something that's available. I did ask Director Administrator Lesher the last time I spoke to her, do we have the same issue with no labels, because they are an officially recognized political party within the state of Arizona. I don't know whether they're an officially recognized political party within Pima County. So it isn't a specific number. It's a number. I mean, if we had tremendous organization efforts out there and all of a sudden it ended up with 5 or 6 political parties, we would have that opportunity. It isn't a defined number of people that serve on the commission. There's positions that determine how many people end up on the commission. Director Hargrove, you're looking at me.
Oh, no, Chair Bickle, no labels is not a recognized party in Pima County.
Okay. But the Green Party is.
Yes, sir.
And we have had representation from the Green Party in the past, and they lost representation on the commission because they lost their certification as a recognized political party in Pima County, but they have subsequently regained that. So they are eligible to put somebody on this commission, but that's on them. That's not on us.
They have appointed somebody, or in the process of doing that, the appointment should go before the Board of Supervisors March 15th.
Okay. Cool. Anything else as far as the bylaws are concerned? Hearing none. Commissioner Tillman, plans? No. Commissioner Beresny, EIC 2023 Annual Report Draft Revision.
Yeah, Chair Bickle, I respectfully ask for a 5-minute break. New medication.
We'll stop the conduct of business for a few minutes. Vanessa, who, off the top of your head, if you know, has the Green Party submitted for the commission? Don't know. Okay. He always shows up in the middle. He was here last month. So, I believe the bylaws say consecutive.
How many consecutive times to
I
meet?
think it's
4.
3 or 4.
Okay.
It's, you gotta be pretty.
Just enough to stay on.
For tabulation, you and Connie will be responsible for figuring out the first week, if they do anything the first week.
The first week being when, date-wise?
May 5th week.
Okay.
That's right. Elaine and I both have very student.
Barbara, I got your email. I'm going to be in Colorado the whole
Sure.
time.
Yeah. Wait,
Sure.
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 So, Brian?
Pardon?
I'm sorry.
I was really talking about more just engaging the middle school kids, just giving them education, information, going in there, engaging them, not necessarily them working.
Okay.
But, yeah, just getting them engaged
Yeah.
would be helpful before they get to high school.
You know, I think with the movement, like we had some things in the Constitution Day and stuff that went, and I know Vale School District did some things with teachers and modules and classes related to that. You know, that's part of that civic engagement and education that we get at a younger age. And then allowing maybe seniors to take that credit in another way for that senior exit program we have in Vale may help too.
Okay, let's get back to the conduct of business. Commissioner Beresny.
Okay, thank you, Chair Bickle. So we took the original draft that was presented to us last week, and what I did...
Last month.
Last month, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, and so there are a number of things that I added in here. I didn't detract from anything that was already in the report. So I added a few items. So if you have it in front of you, I can go on page 6 of the report.
Commissioner Beresny.
Yeah.
Vanessa, did you distribute the revised report to everybody? Has everybody
Posted on the website.
taken the time to read it? I've read it. I certainly don't have any problem with what
Okay.
you did. I mean, unless you have a passion to sit here and go through all the changes
No, I
you
don't.
made,
I don't have to listen. I have listened to my self-talk every time I get after my dog, so I don't need to talk more
Okay.
now.
Anybody have
Yes.
any comments, questions, or concerns as far as the revised annual report to the Board of Supervisors is concerned? Do I hear a motion to present that report to the Board
Motion
of
to present
Supervisors?
to the Board of Supervisors.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. That report will be submitted to the Board of Supervisors. Vanessa, you'll take care of that. Thank you. Plans for presidential preference election, Commissioner Tellman.
I asked for Ms. Hargrove to explain the details of how this legislation solves the problem of meeting the two deadlines, one the deadline for the primary ballots and one for the deadline for the general election and the presidential electors. And is it a close call, or can we easily meet the deadline if there are recounts both times?
Chair Bickle, I believe, Commissioner Tellman, you're looking at the next item, agenda item?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So you want me to talk about the plans for the
I'm
PPE?
sorry.
Okay. So we're in full swing with the presidential preference election. We have had logic and accuracy testing. We've had 3 tests. We've had our internal logic and accuracy test. We had the political parties come in and conduct their test, and the final test was the Secretary of State this week on the 20th. The Secretary of State came in, all 3 tests. We passed all 3 tests. No problems there, so we're all ready to begin tabulating ballots. When we get them, early voting began on yesterday. They have the accessible equipment that we programmed that they're using in their early voting locations. So we will, the early board and I will allow Vanessa and Deputy George to talk about a couple of these things, but the early board will begin on Monday processing early ballots that we will be getting from the recorder's office. Tabulation will begin the week of March 4th, so we're giving ourselves a little bit of time in there to actually get ballots in and have some ballots to process. So the following week, we will begin tabulating ballots. All of the supplies, except for the electronic poll books and the printers, are prepped and ready to go. We have to wait for the final file from the recorder's office before we can download it onto the electronic poll books. Of course, they have until today to get their applications in and data entry complete, and then we'll get a file from them to download to the electronic poll books for our election day. And let's see, vote centers were approved on Tuesday for the PPE election. Just note that those vote centers will be different for the next two elections. We have 122, thank you, 122 for the PPE election, which will allow to reduce numbers for the PPE, but those were approved on Tuesday. Poll workers will be approved on March 5th. When we submitted the list to the clerk, we did have one vote center that had one person assigned to it. Of course, that would be our sales location. We have since added additional poll workers, so we do have a full complement of poll workers for that vote center, but the initial list that we sent was short. So that list will be on the Board of Supervisors agenda on March 5th to be approved. And, okay, so I will allow Vanessa to talk to you about the early board and tabulation training that was conducted and what their plans are for the early board and the changes that we've made. And Mr. George will talk to you about our actual poll worker training.
Director Hargrove,
Yes.
how many political parties participated in the LNA?
In the political party LNA, both parties were present. One party, the Democratic Party, marked ballots. The Republican Party did not mark ballots, but they were present. For the Secretary of State's logic and accuracy test, only the Democratic Party was there.
Okay, and there was no representation from either the Green Party or the Libertarian Party?
Actually, Chair Bickle, I did not invite them.
Okay.
It's a Democratic and Republican presidential preference election. I only invited the Democrats and Republicans.
Okay, point taken.
Yes.
So we had training for our early board on Wednesday, last Wednesday. We did training on early ballot processing. We also had training for education boards, participation boards. We provided them with manuals, which we created last year, and we just updated a few minor things, and we just kind of notating on their record keeping. So we went through that, we did some hands-on stuff for the express votes that this is what they do to manually duplicate. We will start processing Monday, so we were communicating with the recorder's office. We don't anticipate getting ballots until early afternoon. But our board will be there late morning on Monday, and we'll just wait and prepare and see when we hear from the recorder's office to start our first batch.
Deputy Director George.
Yes, so I think we spoke about poll workers a little bit earlier. The vast majority of the bill, as Director Hargrove just mentioned, there was a couple places where we are still getting trouble people. I think we have them now, but we're still working on, of course, finalizing poll workers. That's an ongoing process all the way up to this point. The vast majority of those spots have been filled. So now the poll workers are starting to attend training classes. We started those about 2 weeks ago, and they've been going well so far. We also introduced online training for this year. We've had a few hundred people sign up for that, take the online training as well. So judges and clerks can do that. In addition to taking the regular in-person training or simply taking online training for them. Inspector training and equipment specialist training will start in about a week. So all of those classes are going well so far. We do have a new trainer now, Sean, has been conducting the classes. The feedback has been very positive. I think people are learning a lot about the new equipment and how this is working. So training is ongoing and going well right now.
Any comments, questions?
And just to add one more thing for the training for the early boards, the individuals came in. I did have one of the board workers come to me after the training, and she said she'd been working for 12 years. She was really excited. She said the training was great. the documentation was great, and it's the best that she's seen, and so she's really excited about working this election.
Good. Commissioner Beresny.
Yeah, so earlier this morning, Commissioner Caswell mentioned, gave us a recommendation that we should all go through this training. So I would like a schedule before we start training for the primary and the general election of training that I would be allowed to attend so I can attend that training.
Sure. We can do that if you want to have a.
Without having to go on the county's website to look for it.
Did you want to attend one of the sessions for this one, just for the primary and general?
Give me the primary and the general, because I got to bounce it off my schedule and everything else too, so.
So that, the schedule will come out probably roughly 2 months. It will be finalized before the election. We don't actually start classes for 45 days.
Okay.
I think Director Hargrove mentioned before about the online training and getting all of y'all signed up to be able to take that if you'd like to see the online training. I can actually do that right now. So if you want, you can get a few emails for anybody who's interested. I basically sign you up to be a poll worker, and you will be able to log into the poll workers do take it online.
Okay.
So if you're interested in that, I can certainly do that. Some of you are already in the system. That's what was working, and others who work the hand count audit to be in the system. But if you're not, you're just going to get a couple emails that are directed to poll workers.
Okay, thanks. Sign me up, Coach.
Okay? Sign you up. You're already in there, so you might not get as many emails, but I will give you the link to the.
Oh, okay.
Sign, yep.
Commissioner Caswell.
Yes, thank you. I would like to piggyback on what George has said. As an inspector, too, I've been able to go in there now before my inspector training and actually take the training of all the other poll workers. It's really good for me as an inspector, gives me a little bit of background before I head into my own training, so I might come with clearer questions to address things. Also, on that training, which excellent, I'm really glad to see more of this information available, although it is difficult sometimes to find, since in the past it was so easy to get to a lot of this information. But even each a checklist and sign out and procedure and checklist for what we are supposed to be doing for each station is included in this training for all the other workers that I can preview in this portal. So I want to thank you and let you know I've appreciated that that information is available to me to review prior to even my own training. I feel it's really important as an inspector for me to understand the training our workers are taking and also all of the other positions as well. So I really appreciate the training that's been put forward, the portal, and the information that's there. Very well. Good job. Thank you.
Commissioner Tillman.
Please discuss the hand count. It's my impression that state law has different rules for the hand count for the PPE than for others. How many ballots are to be chosen, for example?
Chair Bickle, Commissioner Tillman, I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, I did check the state law, and it appears to only require a hand count of the polling place ballots, not the early ballots.
I believe that is correct, yes.
So it would be a very small hand count with 2% of the number of vote centers.
I believe that is correct. Can't say definitively, but yes. I will get you that information, but yes, I believe that is correct.
Anybody else? Okay. Update on legislation of HB 2785, Commissioner Tillman.
I already said what I would like Constance to say.
Commissioner Tillman, can you repeat what you said about the difference in the two primaries? You were asking something specific that I don't know that I was going to cover.
My question was, how does this legislation solve the problem of meeting the deadline for ballots going out for the general election if there's a recount? And how does it meet the problem of the deadline for making sure presidential elector information will be available in time?
Commissioner Tillman, so the legislation shortened timeframes. A lot of the timeframes deal with more the recorder side than elections. So the cure period has been shortened. The time period for political parties to review ballots, excuse me, before the election has been shortened to 2 days. The canvass period for the Secretary of State has also been shortened. So taking all of those into account, it gives us the days that we need to be able to prepare the ballots in time for UOCAVA ballots to go out within the 45-day time period. So UOCAVA ballots are military overseas ballots. The ballots that go out to those voters have to go out 45 days prior to the election. So it gives us enough of a window, if there is a recount, to be able to get those prepared and out on time. As far as the general election with the shortening of the canvass period and the cure period, it also gives us another 7 days in there where we have a buffer to be able to get those electors to Congress in time.
So, yeah, I had a couple questions. So the cure period that we're going to have, though, that's going to be adequate? I mean, okay, I phrased that wrong. It's shortened now compared to what you had in the past. It's 5 straight days or whatever, how many days versus business days. Have you had in the past where during the curing process you found that you were still curing ballots past a 5-day window?
Chair Bickle, Commissioner Beresny, that is an excellent question for the recorder.
Okay, so the recorder does the recurring and the signature verification, so.
Yes.
Okay. Another question I had was, so we reviewed the legislation, and so I haven't looked at compared the legislation to the elections procedures manual yet. So I'm assuming there would have to be some kind of changes in the EPM to identify with the current legislation that we have on the books now. Do we have any idea? Does anybody know if the Secretary of State's planning on making any changes? Are we going to be running into a situation where we run into an elections procedures manual that is not compliant with state law?
So, Chair Bickle, Commissioner Beresny, the Secretary of State does not have the authority to change it now.
Okay, so we're going to have an EPM that is not compliant with legislation.
We will have
even
an
though he
EP.
doesn't have the authority to change it.
Correct. So we will have the information, we have the updates from the Secretary of State, from the legislature, of course, which happens every other year. It happens that way. When legislation is passed, the EPM is not updated until, of course, the following year. So whatever legislation is passed, we use that legislation and we conduct elections.
Okay, so there's then, maybe just phrase what you said for me a different way, that from my past experiences, you have some kind of a change document. Instead of changing the whole EPM, you might have something that says, well, in this paragraph in the EPM is now changed to read, should be this. You don't have anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. So we're going to run into issues. Have we looked at the changes in the legislation and how they're going to impact our electoral process flowcharts? Have we done that yet?
Commissioner Beresny, absolutely not, no.
I'm going to we'll take a look at it before April. Okay.
So it does not affect the process. It just affects days.
Timelines.
Yes.
Okay.
So the process is the same.
Process will be the same time.
Process
so
is
it's
exactly the
compressed.
same. Time frame has been shortened on some things.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Okay, discussion and inquiry into the large increase in the federal-only voters, Commissioner Caswell.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was doing some research, and as an elections nerd, according to the Elections Procedures Manual, page 50, Federal-Only Registration and Ballot Report, the county recorder or other officer in charge of elections must file a report with the Secretary of State and post on the county recorder's website the number of people who are registered to vote using the state or federal form who have not provided documentary proof of citizenship. In even-numbered years, which we are in, the report must be made on January 2nd, April 1st, and the last day on which a person may register to be eligible to vote in the next presidential preference, primary, and general election. While doing my homework, first of all, Proof of Citizenship Initiative was passed by the voters in 2004. In 2020, according to the Pima County Recorder's website, we had federal-only voters at a number of 1,942 federal-only voters. Today, as of 2020, which is the current recorder's numbers on the website, the number of federal-only voters registered here in Pima County is 5,377. In fact, 20 additional voters have been added since February 5th. So this is an increase of 275% of federal-only voters since the last general election numbers posted on the recorder's website. 30,195 of these are active early voters on the AVA list, which do not present themselves to vote at any voting center. That's 60% of all federal-only voters on that list, or Pima County. In 2020, we had seen the primary elections, or Pima County elections. We had five parties and no federal ballots produced for federal-only elections, for a final cost of $104,068. 7 voters at that time in 2014 were federal-only voters that voted in that election, 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats, which totaled about $15,000 per ballot or per vote for those 7 voters. And today, I sit here with a 275% increase in that federal-only voter list. And I have questions. According to the Elections Procedures Manual as well, just to make the rest of the commissioners aware of this information, and I hope that the recorder can come and provide some reporting to us in the future. Page 8, procedures for registrants with a non-citizen Arizona driver's license or ID. So the voter registration database may have a status of not eligible for a federal-only voter and a reason code entered into the registration of invalid proof of citizenship. I would like to know how many of those federal-only voters are on that not eligible list for invalid proof of citizenship. Also on page 3, in procedures for residents with a non-citizen Arizona driver's license, number 3, we are to maintain the registrant's information on the voter registration database with a status of not eligible or a functional equivalent until the next regular general election if the registrant has not provided valid citizenship identification. And after the next general election, if the registrant still has not provided that, the record may be changed to not registered. The registrant would then be required to complete a new registration form to become eligible to vote in future elections. I was wondering how many of the 1,942 voters in 2020 were dropped from that list because they failed to provide that citizenship data in that time. So how many had changed since that time? Also, in a federal-only voter, a federal-only voter has been issued a mail-in ballot, becomes a full ballot voter prior to 5 p.m. on the Thursday before the election. So all the way up to the Thursday before the election, a federal full voter may provide that documentation and become a full ballot voter. However, I feel that in many of the governor's recommendations with their task force and things we're dealing with in the elections procedures manual, we are forgetting the one person, one vote rule. It also goes on to state, if a voter is issued both an early federal only ballot and an early full ballot, the first ballot accepted by the county recorder's office is the only ballot that will be counted. In the prior elections, we went from provisional balloting for people that were on the early voting list to exchanging ballots in voting centers for them to vote election day ballots. I have issues with federal-only voters that may be receiving 2 ballots in the mail. No one should have 2 ballots. In fact, as a voting center inspector, I've instructed our clerks that anyone that enters with an early ballot must receive a sample ballot to mark their indications if they want, but they cannot take that other ballot with the other ballot we've printed into the vote center. They must leave that with the clerk and spoil that ballot and use a sample to have as a voting guide. And so 2 ballots for a federal-only voter is very concerning. Also on page 11, verifying citizenship near voter registration deadlines. Often there's a delay between when a registrant becomes a U.S. citizen and when that registration citizenship status has been updated and saved. Therefore, certain precautions must be taken if a county recorder receives a voter registration form within 2 weeks of the registration deadline that contains citizenship or naturalization or alien registration numbers. Within 14 days of a registration, they need to contact that federal-only voter by telephone and email. And also, they must check the SAVE database. The SAVE database is only for those that have indicated, and I want to know naturalization and alien registration number. And I want to know how many of those have been moved to a full ballot from a federal-only status, especially 2 weeks before the deadline to have a full ballot voter. So the statutory obligation to verify citizenship on page 12 states within 10 days after receiving a federal form not accompanied by the citizenship data, a recorder must attempt to verify citizenship, including checking certain databases if the county recorder has access. I would like to confirm what access to the databases that the county recorder has and what they are checking, since we are now checking these citizenship statuses just 14 days before an election, and that we are allowing that citizens can provide that information up to 5 p.m. the Thursday before an election to vote a full ballot and be possibly receiving 2 ballots then at that time. I understand that these are more recorder's office questions, and so I wanted to put that information to you as commissioners to also do your research. I would hope that in the future our recorder can come to the meeting and address these federal-only voter issues. With the influx of the immigrants that we have in our community, I have concerns as to the 275% increase from the general election of 2020 to today's numbers of federal-only voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caswell. Director Hargrove, any response at all? Understanding it's more of a recorder issue than it is?
No, sir. No
Okay.
response.
Anybody else have anything to say as far as this issue is concerned? Hearing nothing. Future agenda items, I don't have anything right off the top of my head, but if you do, please get them to Vanessa as soon as possible so we can incorporate them into the agenda. Next meeting date, March 15th of 2024. I fear we will have no recorder support at that meeting and probably no elections department support at that meeting, since it's 3 days after the election.
Chair Bickle, you assume correctly?
Maybe a lack of commissioner support, because we may all be doing other things that week. Is there a recommendation to either postpone or cancel the March meeting?
I'll make that recommendation to cancel it and wait until April to reconvene.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be the third Friday of April, whatever day that happens to be. I don't know right off the top of my head.
The 19th.
The 19th. So you're all welcome to come next month, but don't count on a whole lot of people being here. Is there anything else that anybody needs to bring before this commission? Hearing none, this commission meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry. We completely forgot your flow chart.
We're not going to do anything with the flow chart until, it's not on the agenda.
I thought it was. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, we've got an ad hoc meeting on the April the 1st.
Read the very last sentence on the second page. So apparently Pima County does not participate in AMP, correct? But according to her List Maples thing, they do.
That's, and it, agreed.
Yeah.
Is this a copy I can keep?
No, I don't have a way to duplicate, but I'll check with the gal over in the corner.
I'll screenshot, huh?
Well,
If that's okay.
the gal in the corner probably make a copy.
Constance?
No, outside, across
Okay.
from the security.
Oh, okay.
She's
Would you
done
like
it
me?
for us before.
All right.
I'll see what I can do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll look into that information.
If you need data on federal only, I can get that to you from the Secretary of State's database.